10 movie scenes that changed movies forever. 10 movie scenes, that is, not 10 movies, 10 individual scenes. And I'd argue they quietly rewired how almost every blockbuster gets made today. A bus that couldn't slow down. A ship that wouldn't stop sinking. A dinosaur that looked way too real for 1993. A guy dodging bullets in a black trench coat like it was nothing. Today I'm digging into the 10 movie moments that actually changed the rules of cinema. A couple of these almost never happened, and one of them was considered borderline impossible to film at the time. Let's get into it. Speed, 1994. The bus that raised the stakes. Sometimes you don't need spaceships or superheroes to change movies. Sometimes all you need is a city bus and a genuinely terrible traffic day. By the early 90s, action movies had gotten a little predictable. The hero always has time to think things through. The villain monologues for a while. Stuff explodes because, well, that's what the trailer promised. Then Speed shows up with one embarrassingly simple idea. A bus that explodes if you drop below 50 miles an hour. That's it. That's the whole pitch. And it's brilliant, because everyone in the theatre understands the rules instantly. No exposition dump required. Every red light becomes a life or death moment. Every lane change matters. Hollywood noticed and copied the formula relentlessly for the next decade. A train that can't stop. A plane running low on fuel. A submarine losing power. Turns out one great, simple idea beats 100 expensive explosions. And it also turned Keanu Reeves from an easygoing guy from Bill and Ted into an honest-to-God action star. Not bad for a man whose entire job that summer, don't let the bus slow down. Toy Story, 1995. The day animation changed forever. It's easy to forget this now, but there was real genuine fear around Toy Story before it came out. Could audiences actually sit through an entire feature film made completely on computers? Disney had built an empire on hand-drawn pencils and ink. This was a legitimately terrifying bet for them. Then a cowboy and a space ranger showed up, and the opening scenes looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Depth, lighting, camera movement that suddenly felt like actual cinematography instead of flat animation. Kids didn't think twice about it. Adults were floored. Within about a decade, computer animation had become the entire industry standard, and studios pivoted almost overnight. No Toy Story probably means no Shrek, no Finding Nemo, no Frozen. An entire generation of movies traces back to toys coming alive the second the humans leave the room. Titanic, 1997. The ship that couldn't fail. Pitching a movie where you spend an absurd amount of money to recreate a disaster everyone in the audience already knows the ending to. People laughed. The budget kept ballooning. A few newspapers straight up predicted this would be James Cameron's career-ending flop. Then people actually saw the ship break up on screen, and every joke stopped instantly. It's easy to take it for granted today, when CGI can basically do anything. But back then, this sequence, massive practical sets, water effects, miniatures, and digital work all stitched together, genuinely fooled audiences into forgetting they were watching effects at all. Here's the part that actually matters though. None of that spectacle would have landed if we didn't care about Jack and Rose first. The effects only worked because the story earned them. That's a lesson a lot of modern blockbusters still haven't fully learned. And it's why, nearly 30 years later, people still remember exactly where they were the first time they watched that ship disappear under the water. The Matrix, 1999. Bullet time. Every generation gets one movie where the entire theatre collectively goes, wait, how did they do that? For mine, it was this one. Neo leans back. The bullets just hang there in midair, and the camera drifts around a frozen moment like time itself hit pause. Nobody had seen anything close to this before. Behind the scenes, it took over 100 cameras arranged in a circle, each firing milliseconds apart, stitched together digitally to fake the illusion that time had basically stopped. Within months, commercials copied it, video games copied it, music videos copied it. Bullet time became one of those rare effects that people who'd never seen The Matrix could still instantly recognize. That's the actual bar for this scene entered pop culture forever. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, 2001. You Shall Not Pass. For years, studios genuinely believed fantasy was too risky for mainstream audiences. Too many dragons, too much magic, too expensive to justify. Then an old wizard plants his staff on a bridge, faces down something straight out of a nightmare, and says 5 words that are still getting quoted at people's day jobs today. The moment isn't legendary because Gandalf wins. It's legendary because he doesn't. He sacrifices himself. And audiences just stopped watching a fantasy movie and started actually believing in Middle-earth. That was the real turning point. Digital creatures could finally carry genuine emotional weight, not just spectacle. Fantasy stopped being the risky niche genre. Overnight, the studios spent the next 20 years pouring billions into building entire fictional worlds, because one bridge, one monster, and one goodbye proved it could actually work.
Fly, you fools!
Okay, we're halfway there, but these next 5 didn't just influence how movies get made, they reshaped the entire business. One convinced audiences dinosaurs were walking around again. Another completely reinvented what a superhero movie could be. And one became so famous that people who've never even seen the movie could still probably act it out for you. Let's keep going. Jurassic Park, 1993. The first T-Rex attack. If there's one scene that convinced the world computers could create something that felt genuinely alive, this is it. The water in the cup started rippling. You could hear the footsteps. The fence goes down. And then, there it is. We're so used to digital creatures now that it's easy to forget how shocking this actually was in 1993. People walked out of theatres convinced they'd watched a real dinosaur. Here's the twist most people don't know. A huge chunk of that T-Rex was practical, full-sized animatronics, blended so seamlessly with the CGI that nobody could tell where one ended and the other began. That's the actual trick. When the technology disappears completely and the story just takes over. Hollywood took one look at that rainy night and decided anything was now possible on screen. And fantasy, sci-fi, and creature effects all exploded because of it.
Don't move.
The Dark Knight, 2008. The hospital explosion. Before this movie, superhero films were mostly filed under fun, popcorn entertainment. After it, they got taken seriously as actual cinema. And this scene is basically the whole reason why. The Joker strolls away from a hospital, hits the detonator, and nothing happens. He looks genuinely annoyed, hits it again, and then the entire building goes up behind him. Here's a fun bit of trivia. That little pause wasn't scripted. The practical effects briefly misfired in the moment, and Heath Ledger just stayed completely in character through it, which somehow made the whole thing feel even more unhinged and real. No big speech, no dramatic pose, just chaos. And suddenly the Joker felt like an actual threat instead of a comic book villain. That's the moment superhero movies stop being just for people who read the comics. Avatar, 2009. Entering Pandora. Love it or roll your eyes at it. Avatar changed movies. Full stop. When Jake Sully first steps into Pandora's glowing forest, audiences weren't just watching another sci-fi film. They were being transported somewhere that felt weirdly real. James Cameron wasn't chasing looks cool. He wanted people to physically feel like they'd gone somewhere else for 3 hours. The performance capture work reached a level nobody thought was possible at the time. Actors weren't buried under the technology. Their actual performances came through it. For a while, cinemas legitimately couldn't install 3D projectors fast enough to keep up with the demand. A lot of studios copied the tech and completely missed the point. Very few matched the actual experience Avatar delivered, and that gap is the whole story right there.
Come.
Avengers Endgame 2019. Avengers Assemble. Honestly, this wasn't really a movie scene anymore. By the time it happened, it was a cultural event. 11 years, 22 movies, hundreds of characters, all building to one moment. Captain America's standing there alone, completely outnumbered. And then the portals start opening. One by one, everyone comes back. And then finally, those two words. I've genuinely never heard a theatre react to anything the way that room reacted that night. People laughed. People cried. Some folks just sat there grinning, like idiots, myself included. For the record, Marvel pulled off something studios had been chasing for decades. They rewarded a decade of patience with one single, perfectly earned payoff. No other studio has managed storytelling on that scale with a landing that clean, and plenty have tried.
Assemble.
Barbie, 2023. The monologue that changed the conversation. When Barbie got announced, a lot of people, myself included, if I'm honest, assumed we were getting a 2-hour toy commercial with good production design. Instead, we got one of the biggest cultural moments of the decade. And buried in the middle of all the pink sets and jokes was one scene that stopped everything cold. America Ferrera's monologue. For a few minutes, the movie just stopped trying to be funny and says something completely honest instead. Whether every line landed for you personally or not. Millions of people walked out of that theatre talking about that scene specifically. Not the dream house, not the costumes, that conversation. It reminded Hollywood of something almost old-fashioned. Audiences still respond to genuine emotion, even inside the biggest, glossiest blockbuster of the summer. And it proves something else too. Women weren't some bonus demographic Hollywood remembered occasionally. They were driving one of the biggest box office runs in movie history. While plenty of guys who showed up, expecting light entertainment, left the theatre still talking about it a week later. The real pattern. So here's what actually connects all 10 of these. And it took me writing this whole list out to see it clearly. Not one of them is on here because it was the most expensive, the loudest, or even the most technically impressive thing on screen that year. Every single one of them is here because it made an entire theatre full of strangers feel the exact thing at the exact same second. Fear, wonder, heartbreak, whatever it was. The technology is just the delivery system. It's never actually the point, no matter how good the effects get. Budgets get bigger every year. Computers get faster every year. Cameras get sharper every year. But audiences, we're weirdly consistent. We're all still chasing the same feeling we had the first time we watched a dinosaur walk across a screen, or Neo lean back from a bullet, or that ship slip under the water. The tools keep changing. The feeling doesn't. So here's my actual question for you. Out of everything on this list, which scene from the last 30 years would you have added instead? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know, and I read every single one. If you're into deep dives on the movies and performances that actually shaped the last 3 decades of Hollywood, go ahead and subscribe. It really does help more than you think. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you in the next one.